Talk to you about the three most popular types of gardening here in Southwest Florida. It's different than anywhere else in the country, so I'm going to start off by teaching you guys how to make a raised bed. And I'm going to start off from point A to point B. Now, there's 100 ways of materials to use, but what works very good is using wood. And not just any wood. There's two types of wood you want to stay away from if you're building a raised bed out of wood. One is cedar, because the oil in the cedar is very toxic to all of your microorganisms. Not only to your microorganisms, you also get some bad chemicals into your food with the cedar. And the pine's the same way, because if you think about it, turpentine comes from pine. And turpentine transfers very well to the plant and transfers very well to yourself. But the best way to do a raised bed is you start off with whatever area you want. And a raised bed doesn't necessarily have to be square. It can be any shape you want to do, which is nice. And what I do is I usually do a 4x8 to start off with for my customers. And what I do is I lay down a weed mat. Now, a weed mat comes in rolls of 50 to 25 to 10 to 15 feet. You can get it at Home Depot, you can get them at Lowe's. And what works very good is what comes right with them a lot of times. It's called greenhouse staples. Now, they're not like the staples that come out of a gun. They're a big 2-foot staple that goes right in the ground. They use that for greenhouses. Well, you do the same thing with this. And this will protect you from getting weeds coming up from underneath. The main thing with raised beds, if you put them right on the ground in Southwest Florida, number one, you'll get everything coming up that you don't want. And it'll crowd out the food, it'll crowd out your food, and it will also affect the quality of your harvest as well. So it's very good to get a good foundation down. Now, what works very good is what we use a lot of times. We have banana leaves around, and we use them because they hold moisture very well. Now, the moisture is good. You want to also add cardboard at this stage. Wet it down, because the cardboard will hold, again, it will hold your moisture in and keep your roots cool at the same time. It also will allow it to drain very well, which you want to do, and not have any of that compaction that you get with a lot of the raised beds. Now, what also works very well is you want to do leaves. Now, leaves are very high in tannic acid, which turn into humic acid, which are the building blocks for every plant that's alive. So if you're growing herbs, for example, it will increase your harvest twofold when you do it this way. So you want to have leaves, wet it down as well, and then you take potting soil, wet it. Now, here's the thing. Now, I made the mistake myself. Topsoil and potting soil is the difference between night and day. A lot of people do not realize that. Now, you get topsoil, you think, oh, it's no big deal, it'll be decent. No. Rocks, garbage, all the stuff you don't want, as well as things like Brazilian pepper. If you put Brazilian pepper in your raised bed, it is very toxic. Not only is it very toxic, it will burn everything in there. So you don't want to do that. So to eliminate a lot of the garbage, you want to stay with your potting soil. If you can get an organic potting soil, if you can't, we'll discuss on how to deal with that as well. Okay, you got your potting soil set, and then what you do is you water your bed and you turn your bed. You turn all of this together. You mix it all together. What I use is a 4-tine pitchfork, which works real well. Or if you've got a shallower bed, you can use a 3 or 4 pound garden hand tool. You turn it, and make sure there's no dry spots. And then once it's damp, the consistency of a damp sponge usually works the best. And then you can plant, or you can top dress. Now, what works very well is you want to get as many living microbes in your soil as possible. Now, what's sitting on the table here is a very good way to do this. This is mankind's first fertilizer. It is called worm castings. It is made by the earthworms. That's the company I am with, but this has been around a lot longer than I've been around. It's been around about 5,000 years. Probably the most researched product on the planet. You can check it out, all the background, all the research on it at greenleafwormfarm.com, just to let you know. Now, here's what you do. If you have a 4x8 bed, what I recommend doing, this is a 10-pound bag. There's a bag half this size, will cover the 4x8 bed. What I do, real high tech. You take a plastic cup, broadcast. You know what I mean by broadcast? Over the top? Exactly. You broadcast just like this, right over the top, okay? Then, here's what you can do. Now, for example, I like herbs, but I can grow 20, 30 different species of herbs in that box right there and not worry about the different nutrients that each herb needs, because the trace elements and the minerals, they will draw what they need and leave the minerals for the plant next to it. For example, let me give you a really good example. Turmeric and oregano. And they require different spectrums of the element chart. They're all in there. So the turmeric will take what it needs. The oregano will take what it needs. And if you're growing okra and zucchini in the middle, they will take what they need. So you can have a various different species next to each other that you normally couldn't do, which also will be good for your shade, because your okra will provide shade for your herbs as well. Now again, this will increase it 2.5 fold, because here in Southwest Florida, let me touch on something that is very, very important if you're gardening. The most problem is, the reason why people say they cannot grow in Florida is because it's not what you can see, it's what you can't see. And the main thing is the root knot nematode. Now the root knot nematode is the reason why let's use a tomato. Tomato gets about this big and has 2 tomatoes on it, and that's as big as it gets. Because you cannot see these organisms that are in the ground, and a lot of the non-organic fertilizers do not cover this, because they start you in the middle instead of the beginning. It's just like building a house. If you have a foundation, you can do what you want to do. The root knot nematode will cut your harvest by at least 2/3, if not completely. And your tomato will only get that big, and a beefsteak tomato can get 16 feet tall. But that's as big as they'll get, because they don't have the root system. That's what these guys do. What they do is the microbes in here, you know, something always eats something else in nature. Okay? These guys eat the root knot nematode. So they keep the bad guys away, keep the good guys in place, because there's a myth in gardening. Not all your nematodes are bad. 90% are good, 10% are bad. Do I know what 10%? No. But these guys do through natural selection. So this is where you get your big harvest from, because what happens is the worm castings are already broken down to their natural elements and minerals. So your plant doesn't have to do that. So this is what makes it so good for a top dress when you first start setting out growing your vegetables. It works on fruit trees, works on anything, it'll even work on your lawn. But I just wanted to explain to you about that. Now, as far as other things that you don't want to use as far as your raised bed goes, you don't want to use anything that will transfer, namely metal. Now, a lot of people will take old fence, old pieces of cattle troughs, whatever they got, and use that for a raised bed. I highly, highly suggest you don't do it, because that metal is a heavy metal, and it will transfer to you, transfer to your children, just the same. That's a lot of, that rust that you see, the plant will pick it up and transfer it right to what you're eating. Okay, that has been a proven fact. Now, the main thing is, let's talk about, since we are talking about gardening and since we are about sustainable living, let's talk about organic and non-organic and the difference and why organics are better than non-organics. And use 2 perfect examples. One is Roundup. Now, Roundup has what's called glycose phosphate in it. And what that basically means, it's been proven to cause Hodgkin's cancer in the yard guys who are exposed to it. So that's just one. 7-dust is another. 7-dust is extremely, extremely dangerous to your children, with anybody who's developing, still growing, because what happens is the powder will travel through the air, and so in your lungs also make heavy metal deposits that way. Now, what's good about the organics is all of this will get where it needs to go. If this was a bag of Miracle-Gro, now this is what a lot of people don't realize, only about this much would get to the plant. The rest would go off in the runoff, just like flushing money down the toilet. And again, if you read the back of Miracle-Gro, it's a salt. And I said, you guys, why would you put salt in your plant? It is a cousin to Epsom salt. That's why it shocks the plant, makes it look great, and then it's back in the toilet, so you get back on the merry-go-round and go around and around. It's designed that way. So that's the difference between organics and non-organics. Now, the second thing I want to talk to you about is the earth boxes. This is the very first thing I learned on about 9 years ago. What's great about earth boxes, if you live in a condo, if you live in a small area, if you live in a gated community where they will not allow you to grow things, they come in about a 3 foot by 2 foot box. And what I like about it is it's self-watering. Now what I mean by that is they have a little reservoir at the end of it. You can fill it up and not worry about it for 6 weeks. You can go away for 6 weeks, go do whatever you're going to do and come back and it'll be it's a self-watered contained system. You can grow your herbs, you can grow your tomatoes, your smaller tomatoes like your Everglades and things like that, Romas. Grape tomatoes grow very well in them, and you can even grow your cucumbers in them. So earth boxes are really good if you're in a small area like condos and things like that. And another thing that I've been getting into a lot is because, you know, the worst thing about gardening is what? Weeding. I hate to weed. I hate to weed, so the way to eliminate that is to do container gardening. You take a 1 gallon pot, you take your 2 gallon pots or 3 gallon pots, whatever you got, and you stick what you want in there, and as it gets bigger, you transfer to a bigger pot. And what's nice about this is, if you have to move or something like that, you can take your garden with you. It's a portable garden. That's what I like about that. Now, I'm going to discuss a little bit about the worm tea. Now, the worm tea is a derivative of the worm castings. Now, a lot of times, there's a lot of people who are not very ethical in business. And what they will do, if you don't, now what this does is it will take care of the whiteflies, the spider mice, the black spot, the black mold, all of the problems that you have down here, all of the bugs that you have down here, all of the scale. Nurserymen come to me when they want to do a show and they get rust on their plumeria. They said, I spray it and they're good at the end of the week so they can go to the show. So this fixes the problems that you go to places like, let's use MRT for example, and you have leaf miners. Well, let's say there's nothing you can do about it, but this will help because it addresses the problem at the source. You're dealing with living things eating another living thing. Like I mentioned, the scale, they will eat the scale. They will just not cover up the scale, they will eat the scale. That's what they do, and heal the leaf and the plant at the same time so you will not lose the harvest. For example, black mold and oranges, it goes hand in hand. It's not you're doing anything wrong, it comes with citrus. But here's what happens. With the black sooty mold, jasmine get it real bad too. You spray it once, wait 3 or 4 days, spray it again, and it rinses right off. And here's the nice part about it is, 2 or 3 days later, you can eat the orange that was completely black. So, wow. Yeah, that's what I mean by self-healing. That's what organic means. It means self-healing, natural. And if he, for example, see, I'm glad you brought him because I'm going to use him as an example. So, say he's just doing his thing, and he gets into the worm castings, and some get in his mouth. No big deal, Mom. You haven't got to take him to pull. No big deal. It's just like dirt.
Yeah.
So it won't hurt him like a lot of the other things will really hurt.
It might build him up some.
Will really hurt him. It might.
Stuff in there.
He looks like he's pretty big right now. But anyway, I just wanted to say that since all of this is safe around the kids, safe around the pets, and what I like about this is, now I know he's smart enough, if he smells something that smells horrible, he's not going to drink it. So, but here's what's nice about it is, if he gets any of this on him, it's not a poison, it won't hurt him, it's not toxic. You know, so you have the diversity to use it, and here's the big deal. You know how bad red tide was this year. It was the worst in 50 years.
We couldn't go to the beach forever.
Here's the deal. This will not cause red tide like a lot of the phosphate-based products. That's where you get it. You fly over a helicopter in the Peace River, you can see the phosphates going right out the end of the river. You can see it. And there you are. I was just about ready to get that. That's what the March Against Monsanto's was all about. The March Against Monsanto's happened because they realized what they were doing with the Indians in South America. They were using Roundup and they weren't using any protection, and they were finding out that they were getting lymphoma, they were getting Hodgkin's cancer. And Hodgkin's cancer is extremely rare, and you can only get it through the glycosamine, which is the chemical that we talked about earlier. So yes, the March Against Monsanto started because of the Roundup in South America, but yes. So yeah, a little goes a long way. For example, you got 16 ounces of this. Now here's what I want to discuss about a little bit, touch on briefly. There's a difference between worm tea and leachate. When you buy an organic product like this, you want to make sure you can see through it. If it's black, you don't want to buy it because it's runoff from the worm bits, and a lot of people will try to pass that off as a living thing. It's not. What it is, it's very high in alkaline, it's very high in pathogens, it's very high in the bad stuff that you don't want. So if it's black, don't buy it. If it's amber, like this, then that means it's a living thing and it's a true worm tea. And here's what I like about it is you can use this with whatever you're using now, even phosphate-based products, and it will take the burn out of your phosphate. The microbes in here are some of the best detoxifiers known to man. In other countries, they use these. They put their sewer sludge out in New Zealand. They take the worm castings, they broadcast it over the top, and 2 months later, they grew 70% of their national food on that. So that's how well it detoxifies. It's a purifier. So it will take your bad soil and make it good. Yes, that's how much these guys work. There's over 177 different types of microorganisms in this alone by itself. That's pretty much getting towards the end of my talk. If you guys got any questions, I'm here to answer.
Where are you based out of?
We're based out of Fort Charlotte. I'm about 25 minutes from here, right before you go over the bridge to Ponta Gorda.
So we live
She knows
Right,
where it is.
right behind the fire station.
Oh wow.
That's where we're at.
We're like that's where we live.
And by the way, free home delivery.
Oh wow.
Just to let you know, that sounds like an old commercial, but anyway.
So when you were talking about raised beds, you said no cedar, no pine. What wood is best?
What wood is best? What I would recommend is use something, and no pressure treated wood. What I would use is oak, because oak lasts the longest. Now I'll be real honest with you. Here in Southwest Florida and here in the tropics, wood beds last 3 to 4 years, no matter what. But if you want on the 4 years, oak works the best, red or white oak. And
So the polyurethane type fencing?
you can do that, but again, the polyurethane could transfer to your plants as well because of the toxins.
Concrete blocks.
But concrete blocks work real well too.
Concrete block.
Yes, because what concrete does, it cools and heats according to the temperature outside.
What about bricks?
Bricks do the same thing. But again, you have gaps in there where your weeds could get through.
Right.
So I just wanted to mention that as well. But here's what's nice about a concrete thing, which a lot of people do, is you can border the outside with marigolds to protect your garden from aphids.
Okay.
You can border it with other colorful things, zinnias, edibles,
Oh, okay.
things like that. Collards, you can grow collards right in there. I've done that before, had a really good harvest of them. And those are just some examples. You can make a nice border garden in itself with that. That's a good thing to mention.
What is the earth box made of?
The earth box is made out of plastic, and it's out of a heavy duty plastic. It comes in different colors, whatever you want to do. I guess it comes in terracotta, green, and black. And I can get it to you in a week's time.
Kind of like a box of rocks.
Yeah, that's what I was telling you. It's a self-watering portable garden is what it
It
is.
sounds really great.
And that's
And-
food grade, right?
Absolutely, food grade plastic. Yes,
Yeah. Mama
that's a good thing to mention too.
She
Yes.
So if you can't use plastics, metal, so what do you use to protect it from critters?
What works real well, believe it or not, hardware cloth works well. So you can use hardware cloth on the outside if you have bunnies or things like that, because it comes in a roll.
Oh, so you're talking about like the plastic fencing?
Yep.
Okay.
On the top.
On the top, not on the inside, but on the outside there.
Like a little fence.
Because a lot of times you'll have trouble, like I had trouble with armadillos. I couldn't get rid of them. Now the thing about an armadillo is they cannot see, but they hear and smell extremely well. And the thing about them is they're not the brightest bulb on the tree. So if they run into the hardware cloth, that's all they're going to do is run into it. Whoop. Go the other way. And the same thing with the bunnies. The bunnies, if you make it about 18 inches high, he's not going to put the effort. I mean, he could do it, but he'd have a hard time getting back out. So he just put his paws up, and that, if he couldn't get to it, that's it. So that worked. That's a real effective thing, but just sink it in the ground about 18 inches as well, just to give it some stability. And what I would use is I use 1-inch brads. Just go around with the 1-inch brads on your hardware cloth. They're about that big, and you can get them in a box of whatever you need. That'll work on the outside. Just don't put it on the inside because of the rust and the transfer that could happen with the plants. Anything?
Is this information on your website?
Absolutely, absolutely. And a lot more too.
What is your website?
My website is greenleafwaterfarm.com.
And where were you out of?
We are right out of Port Charlotte,
Oh,
half hour south.
they have armadillos there?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Out in the aisle.
I wish they did, but to answer your question, yes. Yes, they do.
They have lots of cats in our place. We have so many cats. There's like cats.
Does anybody else have any questions? Any other questions? What's
Yeah,
your
buddy.
question?
My mom, we have like a two house.
Right.
Well, yeah, our neighbor is on the shaded sign, and then we get the burning hot sign.
All of our plants.
I got a solution to that. 70% shade cloth, and what you can make what's called a hoop house. You take PVC and sink it in the ground, okay? It's spaced 2 feet apart. And then you take shade cloth and put it over the top like an arch. And what's nice about that is it's portable. It can come down, and you can keep it in place for as long.
Does it withstand weather pretty well?
It
Like
will.
Some of our
It
crazy...
will. Zip tie it.
Okay.
Zip tie it, and it'll take any weather.
I would like
That was
look
a
up
really
on
good
YouTube.
question.
That was a good question.
Thank you, bud.
See?
I
That
didn't
was
even think
that was one of the best
about that.
questions out. That was the best questions I've had.
Do you get that at your website?
Tell them how
To
to
answer-
make it, Sean. Like
I did.
the small
I did.
PVC and then the big
I just did.
ones. You put it in.
I just did.
And you do home consultations
I do,
too, right?
I do.
So
I'll
like,
look
if this
at-
is really confusing, he'll come to your house.
Yeah, I'll look at each garden because I don't do what's called cookie cutter garden. What I do is, that means a lot of people will say, oh, it's a raised bed is a raised bed. No. Each different place can have what's called microclimates, which means you could grow jackfruit, which is the biggest fruit in the world, and the guy at the other end of the block couldn't grow it.
Okay.
So, yes, there are microclimates here in Southwest Florida because we're between the tropics and the subtropics right here. So, that's a good question to ask.
Thank you. Thank
Smart
you so
kid.
much.
Yeah, and I also wanted to mention that I think you were saying that you were doing something with your website where people who were not in Southwest Florida could possibly
Certainly.
get. So can you tell
Certainly.
our home viewers about that?
I have an online store right on the website, and I can ship it anywhere in the world, have it to your doorstep within 48 hours. We work through Amazon Prime.
I can vouch for the worm tea because I had, I think with the aphids on some of my plants, and you just put this stuff in a spray bottle, and I didn't put on gloves or a respirator or anything, and I just sprayed them, and some of the spray was getting me in the face, and some of it got me on my hands, and I knew that it was safe because it's just organic.
It doesn't smell wonderful, but it's not going
And
to hurt
right
you.
before my eyes, I could see what was happening with the aphids, and then they were gone. I did on underside and top of each leaf, and I didn't even have to reapply it again. So that's what I was.
It's a one-shot deal.
So
You don't have to do the
We had
other
a lot
side
of
either.
Oh, I
But-
didn't know.
But you did good. You did good. It was a
Yeah.
one-shot deal.
Yeah,
It's a one-shot
yeah.
deal.
I lost a lot of houseplants
Mhm.
because we had gotten some soil that had the gnats,
The nematodes.
Is that what they are?
Root knot nematode. You got soil with root knot nematode.
Okay.
Guess what?
That's what they are? I thought that was at the base.
That's every soil around here has root knot nematode.
Yeah, but the little white, is it white things?
No, you
Yeah.
can't see them. You can't see them. They're microorganisms.
No,
but
I
that's
didn't
what these
see
guys
these.
eat in here.
These were like flying. They're like.
Oh, white flies.
White
White
flies.
flies. You're talking about white flies. You got soil with white flies in it.
No, on my
No.
phone. These are called gnats. They're like some kind of gnat.
Okay.
Do they make a hole in the leaf or do anything? to
No,
the
they
leaf?
just their larva attacks the root system, but they live in the plant and on like in the first 2 inches of the soil.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
So
Yeah.
you constantly have to be like turning over this. It's very expensive. They say like I tried all these organic things, like something like neem oil was something they recommended.
Neem oil is okay, but it has one disadvantage. Neem oil is a sap, so
Well,
what
it
it
smells terrible. It
Oh,
stunk
so
up
does
my whole
So does it.
Horrible.
Couldn't get rid of the smell. Had to take
I know.
pots outside and wash them. It was
Neem oil does one thing. It's good, but it does not allow your leaves or the pores of your plants to breathe because the sap will clog the pores.
and the moisture is what was allowing the larva
Absolutely.
to keep alive.
Absolutely.
So it was like it kind of compounded my issue, and I lost a lot of houseplants that way.
You won't have to worry. Take your house plants outside, spray them with this. Wait 3 or 4 days, spray it again. The ground now, with this situation, just like aphids come out of the ground.
Okay.
Is you just spray right around the base where your plant's going into the ground, because that's what they're feeding on. And they're laying their eggs there too. So you spray it right at the base there, and wait 3 or 4 days, spray it again. If you have a problem after a week, you give me a call. That's how well it
So
works.
that'll
That's
take
how-
care of them too. Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
No other business owner would stand behind a product like this because
And you know where he is.
Right down the block.
As we all have learned about our gut microbiome and all the microorganisms that are all over our body, on our eyes, and inside of our digestive tract. And I saw a really cool graphic one time that I'll try to put it up on the website. It showed the digestive tract from the mouth to the end of it, right? And inside your digestive tract, you got all these little hair-like kinds of villi in there. When you look at a root, the root is like the digestive tract turned inside out.
she hit it right on the head.
And the root is going like this, trying to get the microorganisms out from the soil, which is what he's talking about. So it's a big world out there.
See, the thing is, a plant has an immune system and a circulatory system just like we do. See, same deal. That's why you spray it on the plant, it's not maybe you wave your magic wand and it immediately is fixed. It takes a while, well, about a week, for it to get into the circulatory system, just like it takes about a week for any medicine to get into yours. That's a very good
Yeah. It's a-
analogy. I'm going to use that from now on.
Yeah. Now I
I'm going
had
to
a
steal that.
question.
That was good.
I
Real
had
good.
a question, and I don't know if
Sure,
this is
sure,
something that
sure. Ask.
I'm blessed with a house that has a lot of gravel and mulch in the backyard instead of grass.
Okay.
And then I get all the weeds just
Okay.
popping up all the time, and I don't want to use the chemicals. Is there something that
No.
you could recommend?
Well, the thing about what I would do, I would put weed mat over the top of it to kill your weeds, to stop them from germinating. It's called solarizing. And you can solarize. You don't do it with the black plastic, because
Right.
that'll get too hot. You can solarize just as well with weed mat, and you put that over there, let it sit for 30 days or so, and you won't have any more of those problems.
So just put it on top of my landscaping.
Yes, absolutely.
Rocks and
you can do that,
stuff.
and remember the landscaping staples that I was talking
Yeah.
about? You can get them right at Lowe's, so that would work good because it won't be a permanent thing. You can roll it up.
And then
when
I
you're
can
done.
roll it up and
You can roll it up when
instead
you're
of,
Make sure it sits there about 30 days though.
yeah, which I don't care because it's in my backyard, so I would much rather do that. 'cause
That'll
it
solve the
seems like-
problem.
Yeah, okay, well, then I just got it.
That's a good.
Today, too.
That's good. I'm glad you asked me. I've used that successfully many times down here because a lot of times you'll get weeds down here that nobody knows how to deal with because they'll tell you how to deal with certain things, but there's so many different species that are introduced or invasive. So they'll tell you how to deal with or somebody will tell you how to deal with the native weeds, but they won't tell you how to deal with the weeds that came from wherever, like you or wherever. So this will cover it. literally.
And then also the flowers, right? The flowering bushes. This is going to help me get a better
Absolutely.
yield.
Now,
Like,
here's
what would
the-
I do with that?
Here's the deal. I'm going to use the most famous thing, geranium. When you buy your geranium and it looks beautiful and it's bright and then about 4 weeks later it starts getting washed out, kind of tired looking. Well, the thing about it is there are many, many, many products out here that have your trace minerals in it. There are very, very few that have your trace elements in it. Now the elements are the key to brightening up your blooms on anything. Your roses, your tropicals, your heliconias, anything. And different plants require different trace elements. The nice thing about this is we cover the spectrum. So if the geraniums need what they need to make them brighter, they will take what they need from here. And the roses at the same time, and I've done it in the same bed, separate sides, the roses will come back brighter in the same thing. So those are two things that are probably two of the most touchy. So I figured I'd kind of mention that.
Hey, well, thank you again, Sean, for coming.
Certainly. Thanks for having me. I hope I helped. Thanks, Amy.
And again, I'm Amy with Be Green with Amy. Thank you for watching. And if you like learning about things like this and watching other things that we do, please let us know by clicking up here to subscribe and leave some comments below.